Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk. And this, my friends, is the Thunder Show, aka the internet's most passionate wine program. And it is a horrible Monday morning today. Obviously, my football team crushed my soul. We lost on the longest field goal ever kicked in overtime. I'm sad, but I have a tremendous guest, and hopefully that will cheer me up. And I'm excited about tasting these wines, and most importantly, Panthro is on the table. We'll explain why in a second, and not because only it matches his nice little sweater here. But why don't you tell the Vaniacs who you are?
Well, I'll try to share your day up after what happened. So I'm Erwan Fevlet. I just arrived in New York a few days ago, and here I am. So I'm the fourth generation to run this, the seventh generation to run this winery, and I'm here to present you a few wines.
Only the fourth one that was really good at it, right? That's why
That's right. That's
awesome.
right.
So, Fevely, is a very world-renowned Burgundy producer. We've been doing more and more Burgundy shows. We've got a lineup of 2006 vintages here, so I'm really excited about trying these wines. Why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory about what you're doing at this point? Mm-hmm. You're a young guy, under 30, involved in your family's long legacy winery. Tell me, what is your active role right now in the winery?
I took over my father 4 years ago, mm-hmm. and the vintage that we will taste, 2006, is actually my second vintage.
Your second.
And so I was pretty lucky because my first vintage was 2005, which, as you may know, it was one of the greatest vintage that we've done in certainly those past, 20 years?
Easily.
30 years?
Easily.
And actually 2006 was also an outstanding vintage.
So what do you do day to day?
And day to day, I took over my father. I run the winery.
The operations.
Yes.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, you don't do the winemaking.
I'm not the winemaker. Actually, I have one winemaker and
Who is
an
that?
assistant winemaker.
Who's the winemaker?
Jérôme Flous.
And how long has he been with you?
And he's been with us for just 2 years. Mm-hmm. And
where was he before that?
Before that, he was consulting.
Okay.
He was consulting, and in fact, he's working now with our former winemaker, mm-hmm. who used to be the assistant of our former winemaker, who stayed with he was actually my father's winemaker. Mm-hmm. He stayed with him maybe 25 years ago, but sadly passed away in 2003. So in 2003, the style may have changed a little bit.
Okay.
Et voilà.
Let's get into the first wine. It's the 06 Nuit Saint George, $60 US. And what can you tell us about this wine right here? Oh, before you do that, tell everybody why Panthro is here.
Actually, when I came into your office, I realized that this little guy used to be mine also.
That's right. Well,
so
not this one.
It seems not this one. It seems that we had more or less the same childhood.
That's right. Yeah. What was his name?
Same.
Panthro, huh?
Yeah. And I actually see.
You like the bald back.
I have the same.
Now you look like him. Awesome. So $60. So. Obviously the wines of Burgundy have gotten more expensive. After the 2005 vintage here in the U.S., we've seen price increase, not just because of the euro.
Right.
The whole, on release at a euro price, the wines of Burgundy have gone up as, not crazy, but they've taken a little price. Are you seeing that because more people are getting into it, so your demand is higher? Do you guys feel in the area that the wines were underpriced for a little while in comparison to your Bordeaux counterparts? What do you think has been the fundamental shift over the last 24 months in pricing? Because we've seen, especially at the high end, staggering price increases, and even at the most entry level, definite price increase. Your wines we've seen some price increases. What is the momentum of that? You think? Why is that happening? And by the way, I'm not coming from an angle as negativity. I actually think it's a correction because you guys, your production is very small.
That's right. Well, I would say all what you said is pretty true. What has happened is that today we can see that you have more and more people who are consuming wine. Basically, you have more and more consumers.
Sure.
Burgundy is like this big in an enormous amount of wine today, And I would say that first, the offer is still the same, the demand is much bigger, but also Burgundy may have faced has been highlighted those past, let's say, 4 or 5 years, and it's true that we have Burgundy has seen his number of consumers just exploded, and that may explain.
Especially at the high-end collector level. We've seen a lot from that,
Exactly.
Person that wants to drop 50, 60,
Exactly.
$100 a bottle, whereas it was always, 5 years back, California Cabernet, Tuscany, and Bordeaux. We've seen a huge drop in Tuscany,
Right.
a big softening in California Cabernet. Bordeaux is still strong, but a huge growth in people wanting to put Burgundies in their cellars.
After that, I really think that you should. It's like everywhere else. You were talking about Bordeaux. You are talking about also California, and in Burgundy we have the same. We have the top Grand Cru and top Premier Crus, which have, it's true, skyrocketed. But there's a mass of wine, like the village wine, some of the not that famous Premier Cru that have remained pretty stable.
But your New St. George has definitely jumped in price over the last 24 to 36 months a little bit, right?
Yeah, I would
Like
say
10,
so.
10, 12, 15%?
That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. What do you think about this 06? Have you had it yet?
So, first, a few words about the 06 vintage. 06 is coming from just after 05, so obviously,
Sure.
It's, you won't have this meat, this big full mouth that you would have had in 05, but yet the fruit, especially the fruit in 06, is very, very interesting. And this Nuit Saint Georges is coming from our domain, which means that we own those vineyards, and as you may see, it doesn't have any lieu-dit. And this Nuit Saint Georges is made out of is a blend of many
Different parcels.
tiny, very, very, very tiny parcels that we have all over the place in Nuit Saint Georges.
What is the production of the Nuit St. George?
This one, I would say
Ballpark.
500 cases.
I mean, this gives you a sense, and this is like the entry. I wouldn't call it the entry level, but this is one that there's going to be more quantity of than less, right? I mean, 500 cases, that's a small number. How much are the next two wines?
On the other hand, in Nuit Saint Georges, we are also we are big owners of vineyard in Nuit Saint Georges, especially in Grand Cru. There's no Grand Cru in Nuit Saint Georges, especially in Premier Cru.
Sure.
We have 5 Premier Cru, and when you add all of these, it's pretty big amount of wine.
Collectively.
But on this one, which is just the Nuit Saint Georges entry level blend of the tiny parcels that
which
we
is
have.
a selection of what you're not using for the single vineyard Premier Cruise, right? So,
Well,
which is the second level, right?
No, not exactly. In the village level, we have 3 wines. We have 2 sizable vineyards that would be Les Argillas and Les Lavières that we vinify apart because it's sizable enough to have its own name.
Yep.
But we have like 3 rows of Les Athées, we have 5 rows of Les Herbus, maybe 6 rows of another one, and rather than making 2 barrels of this, 3 barrels of that,
We blend them together.
we blend them together.
Like the quick hands. Jets could have used that yesterday. Anyway, let's give it a snippy snip.
And I leave you on commenting this wine because I'm pretty bad at commenting wine.
No worries, especially when it's yours.
Well, I would say in French, that's fine, but in English,
Well, you can say it in French. We got plenty of people who watch who understand the French.
I'll let you do it in English.
You got it. The nose is quite interesting. It's it's still a very tight nose. 06 is a pretty tight vintage from the 06s that I've been tasting. But there is a little beautiful strawberry action coming through on the nose, which I like quite a bit. But again, very tight aromatically still at this point. What are you getting? Anything on the nose? What are you getting? I get a little floral action on the tail end. What are you picking up?
Blackcurrant.
Almost like watermelon coming through.
That's right.
Really, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that wild?
That's
Wild,
very true.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Not the most typical thing.
Actually, yeah, it's something that I would have never spotted, but
That's why they keep me around. Isn't that wild though? I actually
this
get
guy
that.
is pretty good.
Let's give it a whirl. Really interesting, like sour pomegranate flavors on the mouthfeel. You know what a pomegranate is?
Nope.
I wonder what the somebody will put it in there. Like a red fruit. When you open it, it's like all little seeds. If it gets on your clothes, it stains.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
What's the French word for that? This way they can confirm it. Some of the fans that know.
It's kind of the same family as peaches.
Peaches?
Yeah.
I
No.
don't think so. I don't think so. You know what? Hold on.
No.
Let me go to you, Stream. You tell them more about this wine. Anybody know what the French word for pomegranate is?
It's what Persephone ate. Sorry.
Persephone?
Persephone ate this, and this is why there are seasons. She ate a seed of a pomegranate.
No, you're talking
No.
to two guys that know nothing.
No.
Anyway, very solid red wine. Great herbal. I get a black green tea component on the mid palate, which I like quite a bit. Clearly pomegranates coming through, even though we can't figure out the French version of that word, of that fruit. Good long finish, very silky, still very young, obviously. I assume that over the next 3 to 7, 10 years, we're going to see this wine open up and get a little fleshy. And
Actually, 06, we don't expect to...
Age too long?
No, we don't expect to drink them, like, right away.
Right, clearly. But it's drinkable. I'm surprised. I mean, the tannins are kind of... They're sweet tannins.
I think that in the next 2 years to come, it will, of course, close up. It's still drinkable, yet...
You know what? I'm sorry to interrupt you. You brought up a great point. This happens quite a bit with very big vintages. You get about 12 to 24 months of a drinking window, and then they shut down. And then they go hibernating for like 5 years.
Well,
and then they start opening up again. Of course, not everyone.
Like 05, you can't expect.
Your grandchildren are going to drink the 05.
Yeah, I've kept a few in the cellar, but the 06, I would say maybe by the end of the decade, well, next decade. I mean, they should be
5 to 10, 15 years, right?
10. For this one, I would say 5 to 10 years, and for the Grand Cru between 10 to 20, and at their best in 20 years.
I like this wine. It's solid. I mean, it's a very solid, classic example of Louis St. George. You know, you get very good fruit, very clean, bright raspberry, cherries, red fruit coming through.
And actually, I'm pretty surprised because usually Nuit Saint Georges are quite rustic type of tannins.
I'm shocked.
And I don't see this rusticity.
I totally agree.
It has been a few months. I hadn't tasted this wine, and I mean,
tins are very accessible.
That's a pretty nice surprise, huh?
Very accessible. Let's go into the next wine, the Mercury. You'll tell them about that. This is a Premier Cru. Tell me about this vineyard.
And first of all, I would just make a comment on the labels. As you may see, this one and this one are gray ones,
right?
And this one is
white,
cream. Yeah.
And you do this for the Premier Crus?
No, we do this for monopoles.
For monopoles, got it. Explain to the maniacs what a monopole is.
My family is we're lucky enough to own 7 monopoles, and a monopole, as you
sounds just like you think. It's a monopoly, baby. Go ahead.
That's right. And to explain what a monopoly is, you should know that mostly because of Napoleon Bonaparte, who created the Code Civil, before Napoleon, only the eldest son would inherit the entire assets of the family. And Napoleon has changed this, and since Napoleon, all kids would
inherit equally?
Yeah, that's right. And
look at Napoleon being a huge Democrat. They're breaking it up, huh? Good
that's
job.
right.
First time Napoleon did it on the show.
Wow. Go ahead.
And in fact, as a matter of fact, this thing that Napoleon did had a huge impact on Burgundy, because most of the assets that people had in Burgundy were vineyards. And from that moment, so 1820 something, all those vineyards began to be divided
into separate parcels
amongst children. and
He really created the terroir situation.
no,
at some level.
the terroir was
Meaning this, no question. Terroir, of course, was there. He didn't do
Right.
anything. But obviously, different parcels have different reputations.
Oops.
At this
No,
time.
in fact, the vineyards were already existing.
Yep.
But what he did is that, for example, the Clos Vougeot.
Yes.
The Clos Vougeot, since that moment, has been divided, which used to be owned by only one family,
Yep.
has been divided today between 80 people.
Sure.
80 people own this
Make
tiny
Clos Vougeot,
little
yep,
part.
yep.
And just a few vineyards have
And was that-
remained
so
have never been separated and
that's what a
divided.
mono-
And this is what
yes.
a monopoly is. And it's so rare that we always like to mention that it's a monopoly.
It's amazing. It really is. And so, what is the monopole? The actual the Clos de.
So talking about this vineyard, the Clos de Miglan.
So the Clos de Miglon is
It's
the monopole.
situated. Yeah.
Okay.
Clos de Miglan
Obviously
is a
not
premier
Mercury.
cru vineyard
Sure. Within.
in the village of Mercury, and it's my.
What is the production of this wine?
I would say it's roughly 2,000 cases.
2,000 cases.
Yeah.
Okay. At $43 should mention Alan Meadows, the Berg Hound,
Mm-hmm.
scored 87 points. He's a pretty tough critic. Have you drank this wine yet?
Oh yeah. Well, I know this wine quite well because it's one of the signature of our winery, and since 2,000 cases is a pretty small in terms of in the wine world today. For Burgundy, it's pretty big. So this is
big.
one of our
Wines that get around a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
No question. For me, it's the one I've seen on a lot of restaurant lists, what have you. Let's give it a little snippy snip. Aromatically, it's got a lot more going on.
You asked me the question what I changed in the winery since I came.
Yes.
And I think that 2006, but especially in this wine, we have changed a few things. Well, I've changed a few things, especially on the barrels. And
What did you do with the
in
barrels?
2006, I totally changed the barrel supplier, and now we are working only with mostly François Frère and Taranceau,
Sure.
which are
Amazing barrels.
aging their oak at least between 24, 36, and sometimes 5 years, months. I was talking about
Yeah.
months, and until 5 years old, and it gives very, very, very soft tannins that really appear in the 2006. For all the people who are watching us, who know, who knew our style before, my idea is always to keep the same style, which means that making a big structured with a very big backbone type of wines, yet trying to polish a little bit
Keep the elegance.
yeah, to get a little more elegance in the beginning, and by changing the oak and the barrels during the élevage, during the fining, I think that we are now on what I was
Hoping
expecting.
to get.
Yeah.
Aromatically, this wine is extremely interesting. There's almost like a kasha type characteristic that I get through the nose. I guess that's what they call it in America. That's what my grandma made. So it's like a grainy kind of thing going on. There's also really, really pretty plum flavors coming through on the nose for me. You picking up anything on the nose here?
Yeah. Pain d'épices.
What was that?
Pain d'épices,
Pain d'épices.
which
What?
would be how do you call this?
We'll have somebody break it down in
it's,
comments.
it's like bread with lots of spice and honey, and no, you don't get that.
I don't think
Yeah.
so, but I love it. Bread with
I'll send
spice
you-
and honey.
I'll send
Send
you-
me some. I'll eat that
I'll send you
stuff.
some from. Actually, the best one is made in Dijon, like 20 kilometers away from
Yeah.
where I live. I'll send you one.
Please. I mean, this to me is a much more attractive nose than the first wine.
Well, the fining is different. The fining on the other one, it was totally raw. The fining was made, but in 2, 3, 4 years old barrels. Here you can definitely spot a small percentage of new
little
barrels,
bit, no
which
question.
would just give this tiny spicy
No
note.
question.
Which,
Almost like, you know what it smells like a little bit? A little eggnog. Do you know what eggnog is? You know, a little eggnog
Definitely.
actually. It's really quite neat. Let's give it a whirl.
Much more tight, huh?
Much more.
Ouais. When you were asking about how long you would give to this wine,
Much more. And this has a very, very heavy sense of fertilizer on the mid palate. Soil. I get a lot of like dirt, absolute earth tones on the mid palate. So it's fruit, then dirt to me, and then fruit again. And like sour fruit on the back end, which I like.
I wouldn't get this.
You don't get the mid palate.
No.
Interesting. I get a very heavy soil component on the mid palate. You see where I'm going?
Yeah,
I mean, like almost
see your
like
point.
almost like topsoil.
yeah, I see your point. Yeah, that's
Could be. Is that something you don't expect stylistically? Is that something you think that maybe because it's so young and just kind of at this stage?
It's not something that I spotted right away. And to be honest, it's not something that I really that really spotted me.
Right.
What really spotted me was the tight tannins, the firm structure, and
Very tight tannins.
The big potential of aging of this wine.
Huge.
And
I mean,
that's exactly the signature that we expect of this wine is a big, firm and tight type of wine.
no question. I mean, this though. That being said, if you're drinking it now, I clearly get that topsoily flavor coming through. But this is a wine that I would argue can't see the light of day for the next 48 months. Very tight tannins. I mean, this is just put away, forget about. At 43 bones, that's a little bit of a rolling the dice. That's like, you might come up with a 7 or a little snake eyes action. So it's a little bit of a dice roller, but it's a very unique style, actually. Solid wine didn't blow me away, but I also think that we're definitely being way too premature. I mean, this wine is very young.
We'll see. We'll see in the future.
I mean, that's the beauty of it.
That's right.
All right, let's move on. Now, this is
So-
a wine let's do a little rinse. This is a wine that I've had a couple of times from you guys that has just been amazing.
So actually, this wine is a pretty interesting wine because it's a wine that we
Rinse.
yeah, it's a wine that is rather new in our domain. My father purchased this in 2003, and so it's the third vintage that you've done. I know you had the 2005,
Yeah.
which was absolutely
Insane.
amazing.
I've had 3 bottles. I've drank it 3 times already.
That-
crushed,
and
it's way too young.
Yeah,
But it just crushed.
I agree. The 03 was great.
This is
and
the
the
bone.
06,
How do you pronounce the last word? The day.
Claude Lécu.
Le Clu.
Yeah,
Le Clu.
Lécu.
Le Clu. Like the Jets need to get a Le Clu. $73 US, which is Joe Klecko's number, by the way. So $73. It's a little bit of coin to put out for a bottle of wine. What's the production of Le Clu?
Maybe
Small,
well,
right?
Yeah.
Great color too.
600 cases.
Yep. Now there's a smokiness coming through on this nose. Like a charcoal kind of smoky aspect. A little gamey on the nose as well.
That's the kind of nose I like.
Yeah,
about
this
Burgundy.
is classic. Yeah, this is just really gorgeous. I get a smoky, beefy kind of,
Yeah, beefy is a pretty
Right? Yeah.
Beefy is a pretty
I get a beefiness.
yeah.
Really interesting nose. Let's give it a whirl. I'm ready to taste it. I don't even want to go into the hoopla. The biggest thing that when you taste this wine compared to the other wines is the velvet, the mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
mean, this is silk
I agree.
compared to the others.
I agree.
It's like sleeping in silk instead of jaded rocks.
The terroir there is very responsible of that. Mercurey and Nuit Saint-Georges, the 2 wines we had before,
Yep.
have quite rustic type of tannins, which are great after a few years of,
Sure.
of setup, but it's true that Mercurable, especially in Nuit Saint-Georges, are known as making very rustic wine, whereas most of Burgundy is known as making some very, as you said, velvet, very feminine type of Pinot Noir. And especially on this bone, you get this sensation.
This
Like
is,
very rounded type of tannins.
I mean, this is, yeah, absolutely. This is just pure silk in your mouth. Very expressive red fruit once again. I even get a little hint of cranberry in there on the mid-palate transition to the finish. I do get the, very similar to the last wine, I do get a little of that earthy, soily fertilizer action once again in the same place. And now I'm wondering, is this a, you know, just a youth tannic situation? But I get it again.
No, then I may say that it's the that's the way the vintage would be, or maybe that's the way we have handled this vintage.
Maybe. I mean, that being said, I'm a fan of it. I mean, it's something I need people to point out to people to make sure they're aware of what they're getting themselves into. But if you're looking for classic expression, silky Pinot, to me, you know, this rolls right in that 91 to 92 point range. The last one was like 87, 88. Wine before that was maybe 88, 89. But to me, this has that gorgeous silkiness that just devours me, that really fundamentally excites me about Burgundy and Pinot Noir over so many other places. As much as I love Oregon, as much as I love Santa Rita Hills, Central Otago in New Zealand, Casablanca in Chile, there is something about the balance that Burgundy is able to achieve, especially in this kind of example, where it's pure silk and then still gives you gaminess, earthiness tones, but just so soft on the palate. So soft.
That's you're a pretty good ambassador of Burgundy, huh?
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think that I'd love for the wines to be less expensive because I'm an ambassador for quality-price ratio, but I can't sit here and not recognize why these wines are different, why they can maybe,
Right.
you know, achieve and command higher price points. You know, it's an experience game to me, wine. And, you know, a lot of wines taste great. Heck, I'm in a good place with my palate. I can drink $12 wine that I like a lot
Yeah.
for pretty much maybe the rest of my life. That being said, it's very difficult for me to experience a wine like this. The sensation, just the absolute silkiness, I keep saying it, is really staggering.
Well, thanks.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Well, we are
It's the
trying
truth.
the best as we can.
Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, every palate's different. For example, like I said, that Mercury in the middle, to me, that just didn't bring it. Again, we are drinking these extremely young. I mean, these are very young, 06 Bergs, especially as tight as and tannic as the
Right.
vintage is. But the potential in this bone is just so is so obvious. Now, I loved the 05, and I think the 05 had maybe even a little bit more oomph to it. But this is showing extremely well.
A different style.
It is a different style.
It's very different, and this is also what's amazing about great wine region is that years after years you get the same. Every wine has the same. You get the same idea, but it's different.
Always has a little different character. It's like a
It's
child.
different. Yeah.
DNA, but
Yeah.
they all have their own little personality.
That's right.
Anything you want to leave the maniacs with the estate? Maybe
Well-
you want to invite them all over. You know,
Well,
hang out with
that's you know we are situated in Nuit Saint-Georges.
Yep.
We are pretty easy to find, so I would say I hope that I would say many Vaniacs.
you. Yes.
At
Stop
my
by.
place? Yeah,
Yes.
that-
Now, here before we get into the last part, Summer and John, congratulations on your first child. Hit 1 month yesterday. Johnny, Mott, that's the important stuff. Don't worry about this football stuff. Finally, question of the day. You get to ask the Vaniacs a question. Any question in the world. Fire away. Doesn't have to be about wine. Can be about anything in the world. Wine's fine. Go.
Are you happy?
Are you happy? Yes, is my answer. Herman, thank
Here
you
we
so
go.
much for being here. This is great.
Merci, Gary.
Thank you. You know, Burgundy to me is a subject matter that I want the Maniacs to learn more about. You definitely gave us a lot of insight, especially in those first 5-10 minutes. A lot of interesting things for me as well. I appreciate you stopping by and
Merci.
sharing these amazing wines. You, with a little bit of me, we're changing the wine world, whether they like it or not. Visit this guy.